Morning all, welcome to Tuesday. So this morning, we're going to talk a little bit about the Data Protection Agency that was introduced in February by Kirsten Gillibrand. So a data protection agency is not actually even a unique idea, unfortunately. It's a really good idea though, right? So we've covered all this stuff that all the way back into the 1970s, that was, the US really led the world in terms of data privacy, data protections. And since the 1970s, well, like I said, we kind of rubber stamped it and we're like, oh, no, we don't have to come back to this for a while. And we've probably let it go for a little too long, right? Like 50-ish years is probably a little too long to actually to not go back and really revisit a federal data policy. So this morning, just want to talk about what are the benefits to a federal data protection agency. And why is it that, what does it do? Why can't we just use the FCC or the FTC or any of these other watchdog agencies? The Government Accountability Office, that just sounds like a nightmare, right? So I think that the real reason is that we have all these other watchdog agencies that protect everything from trades that are made, they protect your finances, they protect what you're seeing, what your children are seeing on TV, so that there are certain hours that and things that you're not allowed to say or do on TV. So you have all these, there's the accountability office, which I mentioned. It sounds like a nightmare. It sounds like finances, right? Making sure that government isn't overspending, which, I'm sure they do their job well. So the one thing that we don't have that most other countries in the world have is an actual data protection agency. And a data protection agency, I think, serves a few purposes. One, and one of the questions that I can never quite get a good answer to ever is, if we decide to restrict the way in which companies can innovate based on data collection and that innovate based on being able to target consumers, innovate based on behavioral traits, artificial intelligence, are other countries that don't have the same legislation going to be ahead of the game and have more power than we do? Well, I mean, honestly, I will tell you, I don't know. Haven't been able to find an answer to that one. Not a satisfactory one, at least. There's lots of theories going around, but really we can't predict the future. None of us have a crystal ball. So a federal data protection agency, we'll call it a DPA, data protection agency, I think helps answer that question, right? So if you're going to be a data protection agency, one of the first things you're going to do is make sure that, broadly speaking, in the US, that US citizen data is protected and that individual rights are protected, and making sure that you are, like, that it's from outside influences as well as from inside influences. And I think that's one of the huge things that a DPA would do, data protection agency would do. I also think that it would enforce these fines. So we have fine after fine that has been levied against companies, but not all of them are really enforced, right? Even Facebook was fined, close to $6 billion. That was not really a deterrent for them. That was nothing for them. They actually had that much money set aside specifically just to handle any kind of fines that they might come across for data violations. So your data protection agency would also cover that. Your data protection agency would also help protect these small, mid-sized businesses from what is blanket legislation. Now, I'm not saying legislation is bad. I'm actually in full favor of having more legislation in this country. Not a ton more, right? I think an appropriate amount. But it's hard to enforce that if you don't have an agency that actually knows in depth what data protection means, how your data is being used, how it's being collected. You actually have to have a pretty significant technical knowledge and be pretty organized to track this and to make sure that you can enforce fines and that you can explain why somebody should be fined, what violations there have occurred, because not everybody's a data expert and not everybody's a tech expert, and that's okay. Not everybody is supposed to be, but that's why you have things like a data protection agency that could potentially track all of this, be the experts in the field, similar to your FCC, similar to your FTC, your accountability offices, and that's what a data protection agency does. So what do you guys think? Are you in favor of it, data protection agency, or no data protection agency? Have a good Tuesday.